So I don't want to do like an exact part that's on the problem, but I want to give you guys some idea as to what the geometry, different kinds of geometry that we can see, and then kind of relate that back to what we have. So we have a part that is composed of, there's like a cylinder here, and then a smaller cylinder here. And then there is some kind of web or rib or edge that goes between those two. And these are not at the same level. There's some offset between them. So you have a cylinder here. The cylinder here, there's a both follow. So you have a hidden line view. And then the rib kind of comes out and then down and out. And it has some thickness here. You get something like that. Is that a fair approximation? All right. So first thing we want to look at this is, how can I make the geometry that I want on this part? And really, I've got multiple cross sections that are coming together to make this thickness. I have this top view, right? And then I have this side view. And I can break, as long as I can break any of these two views down to a projection, then I can make that geometry fairly easily. One of the things I gotta watch out for though, is things that are gonna make this kind of invalid as I change the size of the parts. So I want to make sure that as much of the part as possible is driven by these cylinders that are fairly easy to place. Does that make sense? All right, so let's take a look at some of the ways that we might do that. I'm going to start by making a part. I just can share screen too. Huh? Zoom.
You're recording, right?
Yeah, I'm recording. And let's give ourselves some units. So I'm going to say that this is a 2-inch diameter. This is a 1.5-inch. The distance across the spacing here, let's say that's 4 inches. You have like a radius of curvature of maybe, I don't know, 1/2 inch here. And we'll make that typical. And we'll use the same thing here for the same curvature. And now we'll add some more dimensions on this as we go. So I'm going to start with these two cylinders at these different heights. I got to figure out where I want to put my origin. I think I'm going to put the origin in the middle of this larger cylinder. So I'm going to go to the front plane, the sketch. Actually, I don't think I want to make this hollow yet. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to see. I'm going to do the hole in the middle afterwards. Because oftentimes when I'm adding geometry together, it's easier to put in those holes later, right? So yeah, let's just do this one. We said this got a diameter of 2 inches. I didn't change my units. I'm going to extrude that. Let's say it's got a height of, I don't know, 1.5. That looks okay. And then I'm going to have another cylinder that's some distance 4 inches over from that first one. I'm going to go back to the front plane. I'm going to sketch on the front plane. Do another cylinder over here. We said it had a diameter of 1.5 inches. And the distance between them was 4 inches. And I do want those to be horizontally aligned. Now, this one here, if there's some offset, if I'm given the height of this cylinder and the offset, use that. If you're given the position of the top versus the position of the bottom, use that. Use whatever dimension you're given whenever you can. So if I have something where I have a height here, and then there's some offset, and then another height, use that. So I don't have to have it start from the sketch plan. I can have it start from some offset of maybe 0.25 inches, and it goes in the other direction, something like that. I can control all of those things directly. I don't have to have those be some calculation that I'm doing. If you can put in the dimension as given, it's going to be more robust to changes later on. Let's say this was only an inch tall. So far so good?
So
Yeah.
what if the distance that you were given was from the base of the one that's higher to the base of the lower?
Like if it was from here to here?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I can do that. So say if this distance here is 1.5 below, and it comes up 1 inch. Right? So that's this distance here is 1.5 is total, and then the height is 1 inch. Any combination of dimensions that you give me for that part, I can find a combination of directions in SOLIDWORKS that gives me the same thing, right? I mean, I'm not going to guarantee, but I'm 99% confident that you can't come up with some combination that I can't reproduce. Because I have the options, right? I have offset, surface, sketch, vector, all those different things. And then I have kind of the same drop-down menu for that. And I have a second direction I can use, and all those extra things, right? And I can add drafts and whatever to it as well. The hardest part in this is probably this bottom part, because it has the curvature, and I also want it to stay tangent with these outer surfaces. So if I'm thinking about how do I want to make this, think about the hard part next, right? Like that's the part you want to do. And there's a couple of different ways that we can do that. I'm going to show you one way, and then you can go through and you can change how you want to do it later. And again, this is not the, I'm going to be trying to be very clear, this is not the only way to do this, right? And I may do it 3 or 4 different ways just so you guys can kind of see some of our options. So I'm going to go to the front plane, or it's not the front plane, let's go to the right top plane. That's not the plane that I really want that to be, but that's okay. The plane that goes through both those cylinders, and I'm going to go to the other side of that. And I'm going to draw a line that goes through the base of the part. I've got that curvature coming down. I come down. I've got that curvature coming back. And then again, another line coming out to the base of the part. I'm purposefully extending those lines out past where I think I need them to go. And I hit escape because I wanted to exit the tool and I forgot that I'm recording. So give me 1 second. This one, I'm pretty sure I want this to line up with the bottom of my part. So I'm just going to make that collinear. I want these two radii to be equal, so I'll make them equal. I want this one to be tangent, so I'll make it tangent. Put in all the relations that you need first, and then start adding things like dimensions and lengths. So I don't know what the dimensions on this are. Maybe there's an angle there, maybe there's a distance. I'm just going to say that there's some radius on this. I said that that's 0.5, so we'll say that's 0.5. And then why don't we specify an angle? So we'll say it's 60 degrees. And we need one more thing. Let's say the curve starts at 1.25 inches. Okay. Whenever I'm sketching, before I leave the sketch, I want to be fully defined. If you're not fully defined, you're doing things, especially for CSWP, where the answer is a value, right, and not necessarily a functional part. You need to make sure everything is fully defined. If you have things that are blue, you're going to get the wrong answer because it's not where it's supposed to be. It's not defined yet, right? I mean, it could coincidentally be right, but like pretty rare that that's the case, right? I'm going to extrude this as a thin feature, so I'm going to do a thin extrude. If you can use a thin extrude, use a thin extrude. There's no reason to draw the other half of a geometry, like ever, right? And if they give you a thickness, then they're probably expecting you to do that. So I'm gonna do midplane. And I want this to be bigger than my part. If I had a parameter that specified the size of that larger circle, that's what I would use. In this case, I didn't give myself any dimensions to start with, so I'm just gonna make it 2. That's bigger than both my circles. Is that? So far so good? Now I need to cut off the excess. So I'm gonna go to, but probably I should have made my top plane. I'm gonna convert this edge, really the whole circle here. I don't know why I just have the corner there. And then this top face here. And then I'm gonna do a tangent line between those two. I'm gonna fix that in a second. If you remember your hotkeys, this is where hotkeys can help a lot. Because if I do enter, you can do the same command you did last time. You'll go back to the button. So you just do enter, 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 enter. It goes a little faster. Make this tangent. Make this tangent. Once I finish this, I'm going to go back and do it again slightly differently and try and show you the difference. And then I'm also going to try and show you a way of, hey, I forgot to do it the right way. Here's this quick fix that I can do to fix that error. Trim out the center part. Features, extrude cut. Through wall in both directions. Flip side cut. Badoo. That is the hardest part of that problem. Right. Now, a lot of what people will try and do, and there's some issue here, you can mirror and stuff, is if I don't do this thin extrude the way I did it. So a lot of people will say, well, the web only goes to here. And this one only goes to here, the midpoints, or worse yet, the starting points of those lines. If I do that, look at what I end up with. This little bitty guy here. Right? That face should not be there. This edge right here is no longer tangent with that surface.
Question.
Yeah.
If you would have done this, the sketch at the beginning, it would have worked the same way, right?
If I done this sketch first,
Like
the cut
it's
extrude,
connecting both of the circles.
this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it started with that. Now, the disadvantage of starting with that is I didn't need to draw my cylinders derived from the arcs in this sketch. I did not put any dimensions in this sketch, right? Don't put dimensions in this sketch and your cylinders, only in one spot, right? I kind of cheated here because I set the width inside that, but really if I was going to do that, I would want that to be a global variable that set both of those parameters. So whenever I made the cylinder bigger, that midpoint web that I made also got bigger, so they couldn't become different, right? Did you try to do that real quick so you can see what I'm talking about? Okay, so let's just say tools, equations, big C2. Okay, really I want equals to global variables big C. And then on my thin extrude here, I want this to be equal to global variables big C. Now, regardless of what the size of this cylinder is, this will still work.
Oh, you changed the thickness of the.
Right? Like it still resolves. That's obviously not good, but you can see that my web did not work. It just got too big for the distance offset. But because I didn't put in that 2 twice, if I left one of those 2, this would no longer like give me the geometry I want. So you really need to be using your global variables as much as you can. Whenever you're given like anything in a diagram that's like a letter, global variable, dead giveaway that they're going to make you change that to something else later on, right? And anything that you think, this is the dimension of a thing. I'm given this dimension once, but I put it into my into my part twice. Take a step back. Is there a possibility that that dimension gets changed later on? Maybe it should be a global variable. So I don't want to have to change it twice. And worse yet, I don't want to have to change it once, then my part breaks, because now it can't rebuild properly, and I have to figure out what the heck happened, so that can be a pain in the butt. Alright, so say I didn't have the foresight to avoid this little face right here. Delete, I can delete it. Delete face. And I want to show preview. Let's zoom in again. That's what I want. Fixed, like magic. Delete face. This is, I want to be very clear. You should not do this, right? Like that is not good design. I added 2 extra features to my part to get around the fact that I didn't set it up correctly in the first place. But, you know, if you're 50 minutes into a problem that should be taking you 45 minutes, probably it's a good idea.
But how would you fix that, or how would you set it up since the beginning of it?
Well, the first time I did that, when I did this thin extrude,
Oh.
I had that thin extrude go out past the ends because I knew I needed to maintain tangency past the centers of the circles, right? So I had it bigger than I needed it to be to start with, going all the way up into the part, and I didn't have to do that, right? It was just already came. So think about those kind of things. I think this is not the only way of making this part. You can use intersections and wraps and stuff like that. This is just the fast way of doing it.
That's once you figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, and then the middle portion, again, it's almost the same geometry, so I'm gonna go to that middle plane again. I don't like looking at it like that, so I'm gonna look at it like that. And again, I'm gonna go from the middle of the part. Actually, I don't think I can offset all the way down on this. I think I have to draw it again, because it's not just a straight offset of that bottom surface. If it was just straight offset, then I would do that. In this case, I'm just gonna draw one more time. Keep hitting escape on exit. On this one, I don't want to go all the way out to the end. I do want to go to the center of that because I don't want to have the bump at the bottom. We'll make all these equal like we do at the bottom, and I'll make them the 5.5. Most of the time, you want tangency on curves like this. They don't always tell you things are tangent, which is kind of annoying because sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But if you have something blue and you're not sure why, just consider adding tangency to it. We'll make these parallel. Again, I'm going to make these parallel because I don't want to put in that dimension again. I probably could put in a global variable for that 0.5 radius, because again, I've got that 0.5 radius in another sketch, right? So having it here again is not a good idea. Same thing with this offset, but I'm just going to try and do it for quickness. And then we're going to do our extruded. Oh, sorry, I wasn't done yet. I want to convert. Maybe. It's a good question.
That's the way that I ended up doing it. The extrude never worked for me. Like it was backwards. It was weird.
Let me do it this way, and then I'll come back and we'll do it because I know this will work. All right, so I converted those edges there. And I'm just closing this off. And I'll make whatever thickness I want. And then adding the holes. Adding the holes is trivial, right? Like I don't do that. Let's see if we can get the rib to work. So leave the box extrude. I mean, if it worked for you, then obviously it works for whatever geometry you use, Martha. But like if it works all the time, I'm not 100%. I may have to start it at the corner here if I want to use the rib.
See, the thing or the reason that I think that it didn't work is because the top one didn't match the geometry of the bottom one exactly.
Okay, it works fine. So on this one, I just set the rib. I make sure the direction of the material is going towards the part. It has to do that. And then specify the thickness. I don't think I want. So okay, so this doesn't mean anything. It's just and you definitely probably want to do this as a midpoint, right? Both sides. That works fine. There's something that you said. Oh, this is not the end of this part. So if there's additional features I need to add to this that have the same kind of cutout, there's two ways you can handle that. The first way is you can extrude up to the surface that you already have that has that tendency. Or you can go back, roll back to before you did the cut and add the geometry to that, which oftentimes is easier. So if I want to add like, I keep thinking I'm on the front plane. That's the only effect is going upside down. Say I want to add a box on here that goes to the start of that curve, 155, and let's say it's half an inch tall, not half an inch. That's too much. Maybe quarter inch tall. Yeah. So I'm adding a box to that. Actually, I think I might do up to surface on this one. And then just do it in both directions. Or I could use that same global variable. Either way works there. And then when I roll back down, fix it that form. So that's one way of doing it. The other way to do it would be to stay at the end of the part, go back to the plane you want to extrude from, draw the box. Oh, I did. Oh, I have to sketch. Move the sketch down. Yeah, whatever. It's complaining because I probably have a reference that got messed up when I did that. And then I can do up to surface. I think this will work okay. It may not work as you can see. Oh, sorry, this is blind. Yeah, that is a little bit off. I don't know if I can delete fill that. I don't really like that anyways. I think I just go back and use the rollback bar. I crashed them first. Doesn't like it. Oh, there it goes. It's trying to do it. Something like that, because it's such a small difference in mass, you might get away with it. But really, you want to use that rollback bar and go back to it and then include it during the cut on the previous one.
Because if you do that all over, it adds up.
Yeah, if you do that a bunch of times, it's still going to become an issue at some point, right?
So when you do the inner circle and what I had mentioned that you how we do is offset it.
Oh yeah, so with the inner circle on this one,
Yeah.
if you want to get that certain thickness, yeah, I would go into the sketch here. I would get just the edge of the circle, offset that, reverse it so it's on the inside, and then to make it a closed circle, you just take the little ends, you just combine them. Went too far. Take the ends and kind of combine them. Now it's a big circle, but it still has that offset. Right? What's that?
It shouldn't change.
I mean, the offset will stay the same. So if I make it bigger or smaller, it'll go, right? So if I do a extrude cut from this, do a through all. And then if I change my size on this, make it say 3. There we go. Right, so it's complaining about the fact that I moved that sketch without fixing the errors, but like it still rebuilt the majority of the geometry that I was trying to get at that. Questions on a part like this or anything you guys saw similar to this part that we could demonstrate kind of with this geometry? Yeah, well, I mean, so is there anything that we can discuss or anything that you see on here that's like, hey, how could you do it if it was plain? Or is there another part or another kind of feature that you're interested in looking at?
There was one part that had shells on both sides, and you were supposed to remove one of the shells.
Yeah. So most of the time when you're doing something like that, what you're really dealing with some amount of asymmetry in a part. And when you have asymmetric parts, what I would suggest you do is you mirror without merging. So say I have like an X shape something, so comes out. I'm just making up some geometry here because I wanted to illustrate a point. And I didn't even get a closed geometry. Oh man, that's terrible. I missed merge. I'm only not dimensioning this to save time. Dimension your sketches fully. So say you have a part like this, and maybe you're even given a part that has some more features in it. Like say it looks like, and then it's mirrored. Wait. Yeah, let's do it one way. Must be right. That one this just is pale in the mirror, right? But say you have. Let me fix this. Yes. Use a body here. Because I'm not getting the geometry that I want using a feature here. So say you have something like this, and you only want to have the shell on one side. Well, if I suppress the shell in this, and then I try and shell it as it is, it's going to shell the middle portion as well, right? So if that's not what I want, what I can do is in the mirror, I can not merge the solids, and now I have two bodies that are next to each other but not connected. And so if I shell that, it only shells one side. And then I can come back to my bodies and I can combine them together after the fact, make it one body. So using the kind of the bodies and the surfaces of the parts, I can be very specific about what gets included or excluded in ribs and shells and all kinds of cuts and extrudes and things, right? So if you want to do extrude up to a surface, but that surface is combined with another part, and so you can't get the geometry you want, I can make that cylinder, whatever it is, its own body, extrude up to that surface, and then once I got the geometry that I want in the subsequent feature, merge them together. So think about how, okay, well, if this was two separate geometries, could I solve this problem? And if that's the case, unmerge those two geometries, solve the problem, and then put them back together, right? Kind of the same thing here. If I wanted to have a different width of shell on both sides, like maybe I want one side to have a bigger shell, say 0.5, let's say 5, right? So that's, now I got a thick side and a thin side.
This is going to ask you because there was the exact same part, but they wanted an outer shell with one thickness.
Well, so
and the inner part just one thickness.
The other thing is, don't ignore the options on the left side here. It says multi-thickness settings right here. So if I want more than one thickness, I have an option for that. So I can say this is 15. And then I can say that I want this surface to have a 15 millimeter thickness. Okay. and I can change this to, 10 or whatever. And I can click on faces and change them to whatever thickness I want. So I can have whatever thicknesses I want from whatever faces I want inside the shell tool. It doesn't have to be consistent all the way across. Every face can have a different offset without having to do it as multiple features. So, I mean, I could literally go through and like click this face, set that to 2, click this face, set that to 6, right? And have as many different size offset as I want. It's a little bit tricky because it's not going to necessarily like show you all of them at once, so you gotta be careful about what you're doing, but most of the time, they're asking you to do that, they're asking you to have like 3 or 4 faces, have a different thickness, and that's not bad.
You still have the previous part?
I think so, okay, I closed it.
So, see, on the bottom one, you don't have anything on it. How do you do the rules then?
The what?
The, like,
Like if I wanted to make this bump on the other
I
side?
don't know, like, the bottom cylinder, right?
Yeah,
If they want you to make a cut, like, make just the inner portion thick to tops.
yeah. Oh, like so say I want to make like a rib that goes along the diameter of it or something? Let me draw what I think you're describing and then you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Like that, wall
Yeah,
like this,
let me draw what I think you're describing and then you can tell me if I'm wrong.
okay.
I just hate that being upside down, so we're gonna ignore that for a second. I'm gonna do a center line. It goes to the middle of this cylinder. I'm gonna draw some box over here. We'll give it some dimensions just for the sake of being complete. Oh, no, I want to revolve. Is that gonna work? Good. All right, let's do it this way. All right, now I want to do the sketch. Oh wait, let me try one thing over here. Oh, okay. No, it doesn't want to let me do it up to that surface. I think it's because that surface, technically the surface extends all the way out to the opposite side. It doesn't end at this face. So surfaces are really an infinite plane that is parallel and co-planar with any face you select. And so that's why it's not letting me do this one. So I guess I would just do line 360. Here, I think this geometry line.
So if the wall ended at the circle, at the cylinder, then you could do that way.
I'm gonna try. I'm not sure why this is giving me 0 thickness right now. So I'm gonna try cheating it for a second and see if I can resolve it, just debugging at this point. But you're saying you want something like that, but not with that notch missing,
Yeah,
right?
not cutting the wall, yeah.
Okay. I just did it before I did the rib. Right, so if I go there, and then add the rib afterwards, doesn't go the wall.
No, but if this is modifying a part,
Right.
would you do it the same way?
Yeah.
Because it's not like
I mean, again, I don't have to do it in the order that I have it done, because I have the rollback bar. I can roll back to before that rib exists, make the cut, and then roll forward again. Right? Like, so if someone gives you a part, you say, oh, I would have made this in a different order, you can change the order, right? Sometimes that breaks things, but then you gotta figure out, like, so, like this Boston Street here. Oh, I actually. You know, I broke this sketch when I moved it. Really, I really wanted it up over here. And I don't know if moving it back will fix the error or not. Because I originally started it with this. I think before I did the cut. Yeah. And I had it extruded out as a midplane. I think it's just equal to local variables. You can see, I'm trying to guess what I did before. All right, let's roll back. Roll back. Do the box extrude. And I can go forward. And that's closer to what I would actually want that part. So rolling back, making the change, and rolling forward is a great idea. I mean, it's really what you should be doing, you know, when you're making modifications like that to a part. And same thing inside this other example here. You know, if you want to make a change to something before the mirror, roll back to before the mirror existed, make the change, and then roll back out. There's no reason not to do that. You know, even changing the feature. So if they gave you a mirror that existed, and so you want it to be two bodies, the feature, uncheck the merge solid button, and then click OK, and then you've got two bodies again. Right? You gotta kind of look out because that may break stuff. But if it breaks stuff, Control Z, right? Like
There was one that you deleted one actual part, kind of broke it, and then it kind of made it a little bit somewhat of peace, but then it's like playing with it.
you can kind of fix
You
it.
can fix it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that part was made exactly at the origin.
Yeah.
So I think that's the reason that it messed things up a little bit. For some reason, it was made right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to comment on stuff without having the parts for them, right? But there's always things that can get kind of quirky and then not behave exactly the way you want them to. So you gotta be a little careful about that. A thread on a helical part. I'm trying to figure it out. I'll figure that out.
If I figure out more questions, I can ask you for questions.
Yeah, definitely, not this Friday, but during our regular Friday classes when we kind of have work time. Come to me with questions if you have parts that you were working on, that you couldn't figure out how to get. Whatever geometry, you can describe that geometry in some way. You know, I can tell you how I would have done it based off of what you're telling me. Like, I can't guarantee that that's right. Or that it's the fastest way of doing it, but I'm generally pretty good at coming up with reasonably fixed pathways.
Yeah, because for me, but figuring out that first geometry was like, especially because like I mentioned, I know that the top part wasn't exactly the same measurements as the bottom one. And then there's a lot, they give